My sister joked, "It's tradition to leave you out, don't be so sensitive." So I sent Grandma a framed portrait of me with a Pulitzer. Then I waited for the group text to explode. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my own sister pushed me too far, and how I finally got the revenge that was 15 years in the making. Let me start from the beginning, because context matters in stories like this. I'm the youngest of 3 kids in the Martinez family. There's my brother David, who's 35 and works in finance, my sister Emma, who's 33 and is a real estate agent, and then there's me at 31, the family disappointment who chose journalism over something practical. Growing up, I was always the odd one out. While David excelled at sports and Emma was the social butterfly, I was the bookworm who preferred reading to parties. My parents, Maria and Carlos Martinez, never quite knew what to do with their youngest daughter who would rather spend weekends at the library than the mall. They weren't cruel about it, but they definitely had their favorites, and I wasn't one of them. The exclusion started small. Family photos where I'd somehow end up cropped out when they posted them on social media. Dinner conversations that would shift topics the moment I tried to contribute. Holiday traditions that everyone else seemed to know about except me. When I'd ask why I wasn't included in planning Emma's surprise birthday party or David's graduation celebration, I'd get variations of, "Oh, we didn't want to bother you since you're always so busy with your writing, or we figured you wouldn't be interested anyway." The worst part? They made it seem like it was my fault for being hurt by it. Like I was being oversensitive or dramatic for wanting to be included in my own family. College was my escape. I went to Northwestern for journalism, graduated summa cum laude, and moved to Chicago to start my career at the Tribune. After 3 years there, I moved to New York for better opportunities, and I've been here for 4 years now, working my way up from local papers to major publications. I covered everything from local corruption scandals to international conflicts, slowly but surely making a name for myself in investigative journalism. The family group text started about 4 years ago, right after I moved to New York. It was Emma's idea, supposedly to keep everyone connected now that we were all adults with busy lives. At first, I was hopeful. Maybe this would be the bridge that brought us closer together. Maybe I'd finally feel like part of the family. I was wrong. The group text became another platform for my exclusion, just with screenshots and emojis. They'd share photos from family gatherings I wasn't invited to, make plans for holidays without consulting me, and generally treat the chat like I wasn't there unless they needed something from me. The breaking point came 2 months ago, right after I'd achieved something I'd been working toward my entire career. I'd spent 2 years investigating a massive corruption scandal involving a pharmaceutical company that was knowingly selling contaminated medications to low-income communities. The story was huge. It led to congressional hearings, criminal charges, and ultimately saved lives by getting those medications off the market. And I won a Pulitzer Prize for it. Let me repeat that because even I still can't believe it sometimes. I won a fucking Pulitzer Prize. The highest honor in journalism. Something most journalists can only dream of achieving. I was the youngest person to win in the investigative reporting category in over a decade. The 2025 Pulitzer winners were announced in May, and my name was on that list. When the news broke, my phone exploded with congratulations from colleagues, former professors, and friends. News outlets wanted interviews. My editor took me out for the most expensive dinner I'd ever had. It was the culmination of everything I'd worked for. My family's response? Radio silence. Not a single message in the group text. Not a phone call. Not even a Facebook like on the article I'd posted about the win. Nothing. I waited 3 days, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they hadn't seen the news. Maybe they were planning something special. Maybe they were just processing the magnitude of it. On day 4, Emma posted in the group text, "Can't wait for Mom's birthday dinner this Saturday. David, can you pick up the cake? Dad, remember to bring your camera for photos." I stared at my phone in disbelief. My mother's 62nd birthday was that weekend, and this was the first I was hearing about it. Not only had they not acknowledged my Pulitzer, but they were planning another family event without me. I decided to speak up. "Hey, what time should I be there on Saturday?" The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before Emma finally responded, "Oh Sarah, we figured you'd be too busy with all your work stuff. Plus it's just going to be a small family thing." A small family thing. Like I wasn't family. David chimed in, "Yeah, and you hate these kinds of gatherings anyway. We didn't want to put pressure on you to come." I couldn't believe what I was reading. They were excluding me from my own mother's birthday and acting like they were doing me a favor. "I'd actually love to celebrate Mom's birthday with everyone," I typed back. "I can fly in Saturday morning." Another long pause. Then Emma, "Sarah, don't make this weird. It's tradition to leave you out, don't be so sensitive." Tradition to leave me out. Those 6 words hit me like a physical blow. Emma had just admitted, in writing, that my exclusion wasn't accidental or thoughtful, it was intentional. It was a family tradition. And then she told me not to be so sensitive about it. I set my phone down and walked away from it for an hour because I knew that whatever I typed in response would probably get me blocked from the group text entirely. When I came back, They'd moved on to discussing what restaurant to go to after dinner, as if nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Emma's words over and over. It's tradition to leave you out. How long had this been going on? Had they been excluding me on purpose my entire life? Was I really just the family scapegoat and everyone was in on it except me? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Here I was, 31 years old and accomplished in ways my siblings could only dream of, and they were still treating me like the awkward teenager who didn't fit in. I'd won the most prestigious award in my field just 2 months earlier, something that would define my career forever, and they couldn't even be bothered to send a congratulations text. That's when I decided I was done playing the victim. If they wanted to exclude me, fine. But I wasn't going to pretend anymore that their behavior was acceptable or that I deserved it. I started planning my revenge that very night. The beautiful thing about winning a Pulitzer is that it comes with a lot of perks. One of those perks is that everyone wants to interview you, photograph you, and generally document your achievement. I'd already done several photo shoots for various publications, including a gorgeous formal portrait session for Columbia Journalism Review. In one of those photos, I'm standing in a tailored black blazer, holding my Pulitzer certificate, with the actual medal prominently displayed on the table beside me. The photographer had captured this perfect moment where I'm smiling confidently at the camera, and the lighting makes the medal gleam. It's the kind of photo that screams successful, accomplished woman who has her shit together. I ordered a large print of that photo, 16 by 20 inches, and had it professionally framed with museum-quality matting. The frame was elegant silver, substantial enough to make a statement but tasteful enough for any living room. At the bottom of the mat, I had them add a small plaque that read, Sarah Martinez, Pulitzer Prize winner, Investigative Reporting, 2025. The whole thing cost me about $300, but it was worth every penny for what I was about to do. My grandmother, Elena Martinez, is the matriarch of our family. She's 84 years old, sharp as a tack and absolutely obsessed with her grandchildren's achievements. Her living room is like a shrine to the Martinez family success stories, David's college diploma, Emma's real estate awards, school photos from every year, dance recital programs, Little League trophies, you name it. But notably absent from this display was anything related to my career. Not my college graduation photo, not the framed article about my first big investigative piece, not even a business card. It was like I didn't exist in the family success story. Grandma Elena also happens to be the family gossip hub. Every piece of family news flows through her. She's the one who calls everyone when there's drama, who organizes the prayer chains when someone's sick, and who makes sure everyone knows everyone else's business. Most importantly for my plan, she's the one person in the family who could make my parents and siblings feel genuinely ashamed of their behavior. I decided to pay Grandma a visit. I flew to Phoenix the weekend after the group text incident, telling my family I was coming for a work conference. This wasn't entirely a lie. I did have a speaking engagement at Arizona State's journalism school, but my real purpose was much more personal. I called Grandma and asked if I could stop by to see her, which thrilled her because I was usually too busy with work to visit when I was in town. She immediately started planning to cook my favorite meal and invited half the neighborhood over to meet her successful granddaughter from New York. When I arrived at her house that Saturday afternoon, she greeted me with the biggest hug and immediately started showing me around like I'd never been there before. Mira, Sarah, look at all the pictures of the family. And here's David's promotion certificate. And Emma's top salesperson award. I smiled and nodded, following her tour while carrying my carefully wrapped gift. When we got to the living room, I said, Grandma, I brought you something special. I wanted you to be the first person in the family to have this. I unwrapped the framed portrait and watched her face transform. Her eyes went wide, and she actually gasped out loud. Dios mío, Sarah. Did you really win this? I did, Grandma. It's called the Pulitzer Prize. It's the highest award a journalist can receive. I won it for investigating a story that helped shut down a company that was poisoning people with bad medicine. She stared at the photo for a full minute, taking in every detail. The medal, the certificate, my confident smile, the professional quality of the portrait. Then she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? When did this happen? How long ago? About a month ago, I said carefully. I thought the family would have mentioned it. Her face changed from joy to confusion to something that looked suspiciously like anger. No one said a word to me about this. Not your parents, not David, not Emma. Nothing. She immediately went to her phone and started typing furiously. I knew she was texting my parents, probably demanding to know why they hadn't told her their daughter won the most prestigious award in journalism. Where should we put this? She asked, looking around the living room. Wherever you think it looks best, Grandma. She walked around the room for several minutes, considering different spots, before finally choosing the most prominent location possible, the center of the main wall, right above the couch where everyone sits when they visit. She moved several other frames around to make room, creating what was essentially a shrine to my achievement. There, she said, stepping back to admire her work. Now everyone who comes to my house will see what my granddaughter accomplished. I stayed for dinner, during which Grandma peppered me with questions about the investigation, the awards ceremony, and my career in general. It became clear that she knew almost nothing about my professional life, despite the fact that I'd been publishing major stories for years. My family had simply never mentioned any of it to her. By the time I left, she'd already called 3 of her neighbors to come over and see the photo. I could hear her on the phone as I was walking to my car. "You have to come see what Sarah did. She won the most important prize for journalists." Can you believe no one told me? Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Now I just had to wait. I didn't have to wait long. My phone started buzzing at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. The family group text was exploding. "Mom, Sarah, Grandma is very upset with us. She says you won some kind of award and we didn't tell her? Dad, why would you go to Grandma's house without telling us you were in town? David, seriously Sarah, what's with the drama? Grandma called me at 6 a.m. asking why I didn't congratulate you on your Pulitzer thing. Emma, this is so typical of you to make everything about yourself. We get it, you won an award. Did you have to make Grandma feel bad about it?" I screenshot every message before responding. I wanted a record of their reaction. "I visited Grandma because I wanted to share my good news with someone in the family who would be happy for me," I typed back. "I assumed you had already told her about the Pulitzer since it happened over a month ago." Emma, we didn't think it was that big of a deal. David, yeah, we didn't want to make a big fuss over a work thing. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I'd given them every opportunity to handle this gracefully, and they were doubling down on their dismissive attitude. "A work thing?" I responded. "I won the Pulitzer Prize. It's the highest honor in journalism. It's like winning an Oscar or a Nobel Prize in my field. The fact that you think it's not that big of a deal says everything I need to know about how you view me and my career." Mom jumped in. "Sarah, you're being dramatic. We're proud of you, but you don't need to make everyone feel bad for not making a big production out of it." "I'm not asking for a big production," I typed. "I'm asking for basic acknowledgement from my own family. You planned Mom's entire birthday celebration without inviting me, and when I asked about it, Emma literally said it was tradition to leave me out. Do you understand how that feels?" Silence for 20 minutes. Then Emma, "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it then?" More silence. David finally responded, "Look, Sarah, maybe we could have handled things better, but going to Grandma behind our backs was manipulative." "I didn't go behind your backs. I visited my grandmother and shared good news with her. The fact that you're more upset about Grandma finding out than you are about excluding me tells me everything I need to know. Dad, this family doesn't need this kind of drama." "You're right," I responded. "It doesn't. That's why I'm done participating in it." And then I did something I'd never done before. I left the group text. But my revenge was just getting started. Within hours of leaving the group text, my phone started ringing. First Mom, then Dad, then David, then Emma. I let every call go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to any of them yet, and I wanted to see how far they'd go to try to smooth things over now that Grandma was involved. The voicemails were illuminating. Mom's was defensive and hurt. "Sarah, I don't understand why you're being like this. We've always been proud of you. Just because we don't make a big deal out of every little achievement doesn't mean we don't care. Every little achievement. A Pulitzer Prize was a little achievement." Dad's voicemail was more direct. "Mija, your grandmother is very upset, and now your mother is crying. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this needs to stop. Call me back so we can figure this out." David's was annoyed. "Sarah, seriously, what is your endgame here? You've got Grandma thinking we're terrible people, and now she's calling everyone in the family asking why we didn't tell her about your award. Just call me back so we can fix this." But Emma's voicemail was the most revealing. "I can't believe you would manipulate Grandma like this. You know she's going to take your side because you're her favorite, and now you've made all of us look bad. This is so typical of you. You can't just be happy with your award, you have to make it into this whole thing where you're the victim. Call me back." My award. The victim. I saved every voicemail. The next phase of my revenge came courtesy of Grandma Elena herself. I didn't even have to orchestrate it, she took the initiative entirely on her own. Apparently, after I left her house, she'd spent the entire evening researching the Pulitzer Prize. She looked up past winners, read about the selection process, and fully grasped the magnitude of what I'd accomplished. By the next morning, she was furious with my parents and siblings. She started calling extended family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, and telling them about my award. But she didn't just share the good news, she shared her disappointment that the immediate family hadn't bothered to tell her or celebrate it. "Can you believe Sarah won the Pulitzer Prize and no one in the family said anything to me?" she'd say. I had to find out when she came to visit me herself. What kind of family doesn't celebrate something like this? Word spread through the Martinez family network like wildfire. Suddenly, my phone was buzzing with congratulatory calls and texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousin Miguel in Denver. Aunt Rosa in San Antonio. Uncle Fernando in Los Angeles. All of them wanted to congratulate me on the Pulitzer and express their confusion about why they were just now hearing about it. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Sarah, Grandma Elena just told me you won the Pulitzer Prize. Congratulations. When did this happen? About 2 months ago. 6 weeks? Why didn't your parents tell anyone? We would have thrown you a party. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. The family grapevine was working exactly as I'd hoped it would. My parents and siblings weren't just dealing with Grandma's disappointment anymore, they were fielding calls from the entire extended family, all asking the same questions. Why didn't you tell us? How could you not celebrate this? What's wrong with you people? 3 days after I left the group text, I got a call from my cousin Patricia, who lives in Phoenix and is particularly close to Grandma Elena. Sarah, she said, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Is everything okay with your family? Grandma is really upset, and some of the things she's telling me about how they treat you, it doesn't sound right. I've been dreading this conversation because I knew it would make everything real. As long as I was the only one who saw the pattern of exclusion, I could almost convince myself that I was being oversensitive. But having someone else notice it meant I wasn't crazy. What did Grandma tell you? I asked. She said they didn't invite you to your mom's birthday dinner. She said they have a group text where they make plans without including you. She said Emma told you it was tradition to leave you out. Sarah, is that true? I took a deep breath. Yes, it's all true. What the hell is wrong with them? Patricia's voice was getting louder. You're their daughter. Their sister. How do they justify treating you like that? I honestly don't know, I said. I've been trying to figure it out for years. And they didn't even acknowledge your Pulitzer? Sarah, do you know what a big deal that is? My friend works at the Arizona Republic, and she says journalists spend their entire careers hoping to win something like that. It's like winning an Olympic gold medal. That's what I tried to tell them. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm going to call your mother. Patricia, you don't have to. No, this is bullshit. I'm calling her right now. She hung up, and I knew my parents were about to get another uncomfortable phone call. The calls from extended family continued throughout the week. Each one followed the same pattern: congratulations, confusion, and growing concern about my family's behavior. By Friday, I'd heard from more relatives than I'd talked to in the past 5 years combined. But the most unexpected call came from my cousin Roberto in Chicago. Roberto and I had been close as kids, but we drifted apart after I moved to New York. He worked as a marketing director for a major corporation and had always been one of the more successful cousins. Sarah, he said when I picked up, I just got off the phone with Grandma Elena, and I have to ask, what the hell is going on with your parents? What did she tell you? She told me about the Pulitzer, first of all. Congratulations, by the way. That's incredible. But then she started talking about how your own family didn't even acknowledge it, and honestly, I thought she was exaggerating. But then I remembered some things from family gatherings over the years, and I'm starting to think she wasn't. This caught me off guard. What do you mean? I remember last year at Cousin Linda's wedding, when everyone was talking about their kids' accomplishments. Your mom was going on and on about Emma's sales awards and David's promotion, but when someone asked about you, she just said you were still writing like it was some kind of hobby. I thought it was weird then, but I didn't think much of it. I felt a familiar sting. Even at extended family events, my achievements were being minimized. And there was that Christmas a few years ago, Roberto continued, when Uncle Fernando was asking about everyone's kids. Your dad mentioned David's new house and Emma's engagement, but when Fernando specifically asked about you, your dad just shrugged and said you were doing your thing in New York. Like you were some kind of struggling artist instead of a successful journalist. Each example hit like a small slap. I'd known my immediate family dismissed my career, but I hadn't realized they were doing it in front of the extended family too. Roberto, can I ask you something? When you think about our family, do you think of me as successful? He was quiet for a moment. Honestly? I always thought you were probably the most successful of all the cousins. You moved to New York, you work for major publications, you've written articles I've seen shared on social media. I assumed your parents were just being modest when they didn't brag about you. I had no idea they weren't even acknowledging your work. They weren't being modest, I said quietly. They genuinely don't think what I do matters. That's insane, Sarah. You won a Pulitzer Prize. Do you know how big that is? I work in marketing, and one of our clients is a major newspaper. The editors there talk about the Pulitzer like it's the Holy Grail. Most journalists never even get nominated, let alone win. The validation from Roberto meant more to me than I expected. Here was someone who understood both the family dynamics and the significance of my achievement, and he was as appalled as I was. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know yet. I'm still processing all of this. Well, for what it's worth, the whole extended family is talking about it now. And not in a good way for your parents. Aunt Rosa called my mom this morning asking if she knew about your Pulitzer, and when my mom said yes, Rosa went on this whole rant about how disappointed she was in Maria and Carlos. She said if one of her kids won something like that, she'd be calling everyone she knew to brag about it. After we hung up, I realized that my revenge had accomplished something I hadn't even intended. It had revealed that my family's treatment of me looked just as bad from the outside as it felt from the inside. I wasn't being oversensitive or dramatic. Their behavior was genuinely problematic, and now other people could see it too. The pressure was clearly getting to my parents. Dad called me again that Friday evening, and this time his tone was different, less defensive, more desperate. "Sarah, please call me back. Your mother is very upset. Everyone in the family is calling us, asking questions we don't know how to answer. Grandma won't speak to us. This has gone too far." But I still wasn't ready to talk to them. I wanted to see how much further this would go on its own. I got my answer the following Monday when Emma texted me directly, outside of the group text I'd left. "Sarah, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. Grandma is telling everyone we're terrible people, and now the whole family thinks we hate you or something. Can we please just figure this out?" I stared at the text for a long time before responding. "I'm willing to talk, but only if you're ready to have an honest conversation about how you've been treating me for years. This isn't just about the Pulitzer." "Fine," she replied. "Can we all get together this weekend? I'll fly to New York." That surprised me. Emma hated traveling, and she especially hated New York City. The fact that she was willing to come to me suggested she was taking this more seriously than I'd expected. "David and Mom and Dad too?" I asked. "Yes, we'll all come. We need to clear the air." I agreed to meet them that Saturday at my apartment in Brooklyn. Part of me was curious to see if they were genuinely ready to change, and part of me wanted to see how my revenge had affected them. Either way, I was finally going to get the conversation I'd been trying to have with them for years. Saturday morning, I cleaned my apartment and prepared for what I knew would be either a breakthrough or a complete disaster. I'd never had my entire immediate family in my space before. They'd never even visited me in New York, despite the fact that I'd been living there for 3 years. They arrived together, having flown in Friday night and stayed at a hotel in Manhattan. I could tell immediately that the past week had been rough on all of them. Mom looked like she'd been crying, Dad was more subdued than usual, David seemed uncomfortable, and Emma was clearly steeling herself for a difficult conversation. We sat in my living room, and for several minutes, nobody said anything. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "Sarah, we came here because we want to understand what happened. We want to make things right." "Okay," I said. "But before we talk about what happened last week, I need you to understand that this isn't just about the Pulitzer or Mom's birthday. This is about a pattern of behavior that's been going on my entire life." Mom immediately got defensive. "What pattern? We've always supported you." "Have you?" I asked. "Really? Think about it honestly. When was the last time you asked me about my work? When was the last time you included me in family plans without me having to ask? When was the last time you celebrated one of my achievements?" Silence. "I can tell you exactly when," I continued. "The answer is never. Not once in my adult life have you proactively celebrated something I accomplished. Not when I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern. Not when I got my first job at the Tribune. Not when I won my first journalism award 3 years ago. Not when I published the investigation that led to congressional hearings. And not when I won the Pulitzer Prize." David shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't know those things were important to you." "How could they not be important to me? They're my career. They're my life's work. You celebrate Emma's real estate awards and your work promotions. Why wouldn't you celebrate mine?" Emma finally spoke up, "Because you never seem to want us involved in your life. You moved away, you're always busy, you don't come to family events." "I don't come to family events because I'm not invited to them," I interrupted. "And when I am invited, it's always an afterthought. Oh, we should probably tell Sarah about this too. You literally told me it was tradition to leave me out." "I didn't mean it like that," Emma said quietly. "Then how did you mean it? Explain it to me." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I don't know. I guess we just got used to doing things without you. You were always different from the rest of us. You had your own interests, your own goals. It felt like you didn't need us. Just because I was different doesn't mean I didn't want to be included. Just because I lived far away doesn't mean I didn't want to be part of the family. I needed you just as much as David needed you, or as much as you needed each other. I just needed you to make an effort to include me." Mom was crying now. "We didn't realize," she said. "We didn't know you felt left out. How could you not know? I've been trying to tell you for years. Every time I asked why I wasn't included in something, you made it seem like it was my fault for being hurt by it. You called me oversensitive. You said I was being dramatic." Dad leaned forward. "What do you want from us, Sarah? How do we fix this?" It was a fair question, and one I'd been thinking about all week. What did I want from them? "I want you to acknowledge that the way you've treated me hasn't been okay," I said. "I want you to understand that excluding me wasn't some neutral decision, it was hurtful, and it was wrong. And I want things to change going forward." "What would that look like?" David asked. It would look like being included in family plans from the beginning, not as an afterthought. It would look like you showing interest in my career and my life. It would look like you celebrating my achievements the same way you celebrate everyone else's. It would look like basic respect. We spent the next 3 hours talking through specific incidents, some dating back to childhood. I brought up the Christmas when I was 16 and came home from a school trip to find out they'd already decorated the tree without me. I mentioned the time they planned a family vacation to Cancun and didn't tell me about it until 2 days before they left, then acted surprised when I couldn't get time off work on such short notice. But then I brought up something that clearly hit them harder than the rest. "Do you remember my college graduation?" I asked. They exchanged glances. Mom nodded slowly. "You came to the ceremony, which I appreciated. But do you remember what happened at dinner afterward?" More silence. "You spent the entire meal talking about David's job search at Emma's new apartment. When I tried to talk about my internship at the Chicago Tribune, the one that eventually led to my first job, you changed the subject to ask the waiter about dessert. I had just graduated summa cum laude from one of the best journalism schools in the country, and you couldn't even pretend to be interested in my career plans." Mom's face crumpled. "I don't remember it that way." "I do. I remember it perfectly because it was supposed to be my day, and I felt invisible at my own graduation dinner. I remember going back to my dorm room that night and crying because I realized that even my biggest achievements didn't matter to you unless they fit into your idea of what success should look like." Dad cleared his throat. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean you could celebrate David's finance job because you understood what that meant. You could celebrate Emma's real estate career because it was concrete, sales numbers, commission checks, awards you could see and touch. But journalism? That was too abstract, too uncertain, too different from what you knew. So you just ignored it." "We didn't ignore it," Emma protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then tell me one article I've written," I challenged. "Just one. Tell me one story I've worked on, one investigation I've done, one award I've won before the Pulitzer." The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Finally, David spoke up. "That story about the corrupt city council member in Chicago. You were really excited about that one." I stared at him. "David, that was my very first article as a reporter, 9 years ago when I was 22. And it wasn't about a corrupt city council member, it was about housing discrimination. The fact that you can't even remember the details of the one story you think you remember proves my point." The weight of their ignorance about my life seemed to settle over the room like a heavy blanket. I could see them realizing, perhaps for the first time, just how disconnected they'd been from my career, my achievements, my entire adult identity. Each example seemed to surprise them, as if they genuinely hadn't realized the cumulative effect of their behavior. But what struck me most was that they couldn't deny any of it. Every incident I brought up, they remembered. They just hadn't considered how it felt from my perspective. The conversation wasn't easy. There were tears, raised voices, and moments when I thought the whole thing was going to fall apart. But for the first time in my life, my family was actually listening to me. They weren't dismissing my feelings or telling me I was being too sensitive. They were hearing me. By the end of the day, we'd reached something that felt like understanding, if not quite resolution. They agreed to make a conscious effort to include me going forward. They acknowledged that they'd hurt me, even if it hadn't been intentional. And they apologized, not the kind of non-apology where they're sorry I felt bad, but actual acknowledgement that their behavior had been wrong. Emma was the last to leave, staying behind after the others had gone back to their hotel. "Sarah," she said, "I need to ask you something. When you went to Grandma's house, did you plan for all of this to happen? The family calls, the pressure, all of it?" I considered lying, but decided honesty was more important. "Yes, I planned it. I knew that showing Grandma the photo would lead to questions, and I knew those questions would make you all uncomfortable." She nodded slowly. "I thought so. That was, actually pretty brilliant. Evil, but brilliant." "I was tired of being the only one who was uncomfortable," I said. "I was tired of suffering in silence while you all got to pretend everything was fine." "I get it," she said. "And honestly, we deserved it. The way we treated you, I'm ashamed of it now that I really think about it. I don't know how you put up with it for so long." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "I was seriously considering cutting contact with all of you permanently." "Are you still considering that?" I thought about it. "I don't know. I want to see if things actually change. Today was a good start, but talk is cheap. I need to see consistent effort over time." Emma nodded. "Fair enough. And Sarah, congratulations on the Pulitzer. I should have said that months ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you. We all are, even if we're terrible at showing it. It wasn't everything, but it was something." The real test came over the following months. Would my family actually follow through on their promises, or would they slip back into old patterns once the immediate crisis passed? To their credit, they made an effort. I was added to a new family group text where they actually included me in planning from the beginning. When David got a promotion 2 months later, Mom called me specifically to tell me about it, just like she called Emma. When Dad's birthday came around, they asked me what dates worked for me before making final plans. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments when I could tell they were reverting to old habits, catching themselves mid-exclusion and awkwardly trying to course correct. But the effort was there, and it was consistent. The biggest change was in how they talked about my work. Suddenly, Mom was sending me articles about journalism and asking my opinion on current events. Dad started introducing me to his friends as my daughter, the Pulitzer Prize winner. Emma posted about my award on her social media, something she'd never done for any of my previous achievements. It felt strange at first, this new level of attention and inclusion. I'd gotten so used to being ignored that their interest almost felt performative. But over time, it started to feel genuine. They were learning how to be proud of me, and I was learning how to let them. The biggest vindication came 6 months later, during Christmas. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like a full participant in the family's celebration rather than an awkward outsider. They asked my opinion on the menu, included me in gift exchanges, and when relatives asked about the Pulitzer, my parents beamed with pride instead of looking uncomfortable. Grandma Elena, of course, took full credit for the family reconciliation. "Sometimes you have to shake the tree to get the fruit to fall," she told me with a wink. The framed photo of me with my Pulitzer still held a place of honor in her living room, and she never missed an opportunity to show it to visitors. Looking back on the whole experience, I realized that my revenge wasn't really about punishment, it was about visibility. For years, I'd been invisible to my own family, my achievements dismissed or ignored. By strategically making my success impossible to ignore, I forced them to confront their own behavior and the hurt it had caused. The Pulitzer Prize was always mine, whether they acknowledged it or not. But having my family's recognition and respect? That was worth the elaborate scheme it took to get it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's making them realize they were wrong about you all along. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that realization leads to something better than revenge, it leads to real change. My name is Sarah Martinez, I'm a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and I'm finally, truly, part of my family. It only took 31 years and a perfectly executed revenge plot to get here, but sometimes the best things are worth waiting for. The group text is still going strong, by the way. But now when they make plans, the first message is always, "Sarah, what works for your schedule?" It's a small thing, but it makes all the difference in the world.